In Space Seed, an episode that's become far more significant much later than it was at its time, but Space Seed ends positing the question of what's to become of one of the worlds they leave behind when they move on. And you could ask that question of quite a few episodes of Star Trek and could revisit one of them. And I'm guessing that might have been the idea that led them to, pour through the original series to find an idea for a motion picture after the Star Trek the motion picture was more or less successful, but not what they thought it could be. And they kind of went back to the drawing board because the look and feel and everything is very different. And its sequel, which really isn't much of a sequel to that one. It's like they started over. They hit the start over, the do-over button. And of course, into the much beloved Wrath of Khan, which remains the best of the Star Trek films. But it all began back in the original series with Space Seed. And onto itself, it's a very simple good episode where you should have left well enough alone, but didn't. And Kirk and crew are coming along, and they come across this old derelict spaceship from Earth, and come to find out it's filled with cryogenically frozen people left over from the eugenics wars, which is a part of Star Trek lore, which now you have to consider that even the original series takes place in an alternate universe because, well, I lived through the 90s and World War III didn't happen and there were no eugenics wars. So I guess you just got to chalk that up to an alternate history for Star Trek. It's funny how when you try to predict what the future will be 30 years ahead of you, and so a lot of these different shows and whatnot went way overboard as to what it would be. But a lot of people thought we would have like bases on the moon by now and stuff like that. But these things cost money, so it didn't happen. Anyway, so yes, Kirk goes in, they rescue Khan, and he shouldn't have, but you didn't know better. And to give it credit, they realize, they quickly deduce who these people are, more or less. And then eventually they get his actual name, and he was one of the big warlords and all that, and that he's a danger. But then it's already too late. But one of the mistakes is like initially there's some amount of suspicion, but Khan, he's in sick bay under McCoy's care and all that. And he says, "Oh boy, I'm going to get really bored. Could I read some technical manuals so that I could better understand this century and all that? Because I'm a man out of time." And Kirk says, "Yeah, here you go." So that was the big mistake, because now he knows how to operate the ship and everything, and eventually takes it over and all that. But the other big part is the officer MacGyver's, who's a historian. And she's fascinated and romanticizes conquerors and whatnot. And now she actually gets to meet one. And, of course, she's immediately in love and pretty much will do whatever he wants, even though she knows it's wrong. In the end, she does the right thing. She saves Kirk and all that. But she committed, treason and mutiny, and ends up choosing to stay with Khan, even though that's going to be a hard life on the planet that Kirk dumps them on. But they quote Milton, and of course the idea being it's better to serve in hell better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven. That's the line. And so that's, gee, I wonder what becomes of this. Spock asks, "What's the seed we planted today?" And then, well, you're going to find out. It's not great. Of course, it doesn't turn out well for MacGyver's, as we learn in Wrath of Khan. She gets, I guess, one of the little ear creatures drives her insane and kills her. And Khan, of course, blames Kirk for that, too. But anyway, the overall setup is just a basic adventure. You've brought these people on, you help them, and they turn on you and nearly kill you and take over the ship and all that. All set up and well done. The interesting aspects of the overall story and the old ships, of course, it doesn't quite fit with actual time that we know now, but nevertheless works pretty good, and actually has been elements they've returned to in other shows, most notably Enterprise, which actually utilized the Khan story very well. One of the better storylines that they did for Enterprise, which is the kind of thing they should have tried when that show initially started, because it's really hurt by its initial seasons. The last one, when it got canceled, was actually the best one. It took them that long to figure it out, but the aspect of superhumans and all that, you only see a little bit of that here. Of Khan demonstrating that has far more superior strength than the others. Also, his ability to survive and recover from the condition he was in when they found him is evidence of his Superman status. He kind of he forces open doors. He grabs Kirk's phaser and crushes it with his bare hands and all that. And he and Kirk fight, which kind of suggests that Kirk would probably be in a lot more serious damage after trying to fight this guy. But eventually he gets hold of a pipe or whatever it is. You have to assume it's pretty heavy, because he just beats Khan into the ground with it. And it's the only way he could survive the fight. Left to its own, it's a good episode. It's fine, but it's bolstered now because of what it led to and all that. That being said, a lot of the reproach of bad robot, with their new Trek and all that, and they were looking to Khan to be. They wanted a Darth Vader or something like a main villain for Kirk, and there really wasn't one. Khan wasn't that. It became that sort of because of the movie Wrath of Khan, which was the most popular and the best, but he's dead at the end. This is not a recurring villain. Kirk doesn't have a Joker. I guess in comparison with maybe like Doctor Who with the Daleks, or it was the whole race of creatures that are the enemy of the Doctor, Kirk had an adversarial role with the Klingons, which eventually they all kissed and made up. It's what the Klingons were the main one. You had Romulans and all that, but Klingons tended to be the main problem, who eventually kill his son and that sort of thing. But as far as Khan being his arch-villain, his Joker, if you will, no, he really wasn't. It was a one-shot deal in the episode. The only character who was an adversary who probably had the show going on would have been a recurring villain was Harry Mudd, who was actually a comical villain, even though more times than not there was a sinister, serious note to it of what he could have been. And had the show survived for more seasons, I'm sure he probably would have reprised the role at some point. But that's just the way Star Trek is. It's not that type of story and show where you have a main villain. A lot of it is to explore science fiction concepts within the construct of a drama, and that's what it's supposed to be. Funny how it isn't that now, but that's what it was. And Space Seed, of course, a significant episode for more reasons than just the episode itself, of course, but still a great Star Trek episode. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you. Most notably, my comic book Night Night over at IndiePlanet.com. Yes, get yourself a copy as soon as you can. Also, you can check out my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com, and you can also watch my videos on the Mr Nailsin channel on BitChute. That's BitChute.com.